hello, modern country, there is an inherent industry where and how if we simply claim all identities of the ground locations criminally foreign influenced and begin simultaneously with those most forsaken. Those are designed for the fact-cheated nature, actions, reactions, neutralities, and fake sides of correlation nature. Self-defended as what couldn't and can't defend itself, and afford the integrity of human fact-cheated nature that nature revealed the republic for which the ancients stood for and its campus system before sciences became criminally foreign influenced as victims, but as roles with science as a bridge that can't defend their roles with that and treatments positive, negative, and other people and themselves from what exploits that at the same time. They blamed nature demonstrating negative value nature progressions, action natures on other things others themselves, and they defended that and they valued that. And that was as exploited where identity. The identities of every modern identity, the law, every database, relationship, steward, job associated with it. Live progressions from those spots right back to all locations. And styles as victims, but as victims in defenses of styles pretending other that are being used offensively to hurt strangers. And they even create exceptions where people like are strangers, but it makes it look like if they say, "Well, I don't know that person," we know them and of them, but they're like strangers. They were because they were involved when they were kids with where and how investigators, and vetting of that, investigations of that are like a slavery. They're recorded delusions, wrought, criminally foreign influenced, abridged, premises treatment, sequence treatments, final active progressive treatments, identity truths, and needing to pretend other. Needing to pretend not to realize that and how all identity of the ground locations have other people speaking through others. Where they rely upon, even through defenses of themselves. Oh, but these people will vouch for my credibility. Now they're speaking about credibility, the way a breaching method needs people to speak about credibility. That's why it was supposed to be, the right to be presumed innocent. We have other being and having been done. While they even did it so much, they've been fabricating audio and video, various natures of police forms with the executive branch, and their roles distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously with the people with the other branches. As clear as day. They were child abused. They speak about being an adult by using appearances of maturity in relationship to things like alcohol, things like that. They make this stuff about people in databases. And so where and how people are good naturally and just great beyond words. They keep that employed. Tools by where and how all formal positions to counter the fact-cheating nature lies influenced by, and liars and fake influenced by that breaching method in relationship to all locations. So and then we have instant people. We set it up like a game. Evolution science only feels like game/s. And we have people instantly who will help each other because we don't have identities of jobs that take care of real science. So we start setting it up. And it's its own funding. That's why it's a game, because we're going to be claiming the identity of the ground locations. So now where it's a big headache for fact-cheating nature where they have to pretend politics, they have to pretend to be about positive and negative throughout the world. where and how they can't do that and speak honestly about what really caused. And they don't know, not by accident. Because, and what they know and how they have evidence is treatments. How they have reactions to people, the sensibilities of people. Each position, nature of sophistication is maintained individually, grouped and together. Each individual of it, a victim. Any leader, no matter how powerful, if they have locations, areas, and states that are criminally foreign influence, self-valued, they're going to be premises treatments. They're going to be physical delusions, criminally foreign influence rules treatments, identity theft, frauds rules, styles, pretending other, breaching screens, tools, weapons, and they're going to force that fake positive and negative inclusion on leaders. That's why and how such a great man as Barack Obama, like President Trump, being like awestruck also by the coronavirus, but how locations, areas, states, sciences, the most brilliant people, our nature's actual identity of relationship to itself and the value of that. Everyone has it forsaken. The short words of our species, prevented, logic with integrity. We have names dropping, and see that's why you have to, people's defenses of themselves, where they say, oh, and everyone's offensively with locations, areas, and states, originally and still, where they bring up and had brought up concepts like that, like where they separate subjects where that, like slavery, where they leave out too the slavery of our founding parents and everyone in that system. It was worse than just extortion of George Washington that forced him to roles, and that he wanted roles with the American Revolution. He didn't want, no human being would want slavery as the way it was, tactically, sickly, distinctly in the North and South entrenched before he was even born, our first president. And before our first president, the counter to that North and South entrenched roles with the breaching method. James Madison and our real founders had to hide their roles. So now, we have his history stolen, which is simultaneously where and how proper interpretations of Marbury versus Madison are incapable of being defended, per where and how the generation of each branch of government was fit to collusion with uses of locations that had been already so long that they self-valued uses of, roles from off-campus is influenced, on-off-campus self-valued, having been, and increasingly, roles with predicate acts against each age of fact-shaping nature, which are subtle and overt. See, I would consider those. It's worse than this, but and so uses of mental health. They have physical delusions too. Our experts, originally still. I'm not a doctor, but it is recorded how they had physical delusions, how they have criminally foreign influence premises treatments, how they are victim predators came through campuses sick, involved with all kinds of other agenda, juxtaposed, and exploitations of that juxtaposed needing to pretend those juxtaposed motivations are all that's there. Where and how they have the perfect world, involved with the narratives that keep and maintain all points of formal sophistication and collusion with overt criminal enterprises, hundreds of nations, right with is fluent through our nations. Correlation in science never spoke for one location, let alone those most forsaken and stacked against, with worse than just impositions. and representatives, including as themselves. So, we'll also have the mass interstates crime methods, like, for example, pretending people don't want to cooperate with the police after the police already pretended we had a conversation and they never were in the first place, for example. While the police have been fabricating audio and video, for example, interbranching with location, their roles with locations used sickly, and uses of identities of the law, the military forms, the identity, the ground locations, how they're being and having been used, where we're going to walk, where we're going to communicate with other people. These are hundreds of nations at once, keeping and having kept this outcome here and there, through other motivations, nature's needs, interests, all victim predators. And that's evidence too. So we have to get to the breaching method. So we have to get through the names forging and switching, that is interbranch collusion with the people. They forced the roles on my location. And so they pretend they don't understand. So I need to just tell me who denies it. Please, Fox News. You guys, Fox Connecticut News, how many times I have asked you to have WFSB fix their news lies? Even if you don't report, all that is recorded tied to that. But WFSB attached me and other kids to fake ties to doctors, as kids and as adults. And they did this with dozens of people from the Britain Superior Court and from Hartford courts, involved intercities, also with people reportedly from Middletown, involved with the people in prisons cliques, people that run the prisons, people on off the state judicial branch offices, people on off the state prison offices, all having been used to make exceptions. So I say I don't know people that I know of. They're beneath to pretend I know them. So that, in other words, for example, a Cuddy family, a Lance Cuddy, and I don't know the names of his brothers. And I never had a class with him. I never had a conversation with him ever, including on Park Street, which is one of the 2 times I saw him. On Park Street, with a location also involved with Sullivan's. Also involved with the confessions of the police officers forging and switching names with other officers through time, while they have been fabricating audio and video and falsifying police reports. In conjunction also note as their roles with a whole bunch of natures of organized crime and of people that are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with various natures of federal criminals and various natures of cases criminally with the police in my town, in the interbranch of my town, like 2 Mendez police, is involved with defendants, co-defendants of former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, through other police that are involved with them with fabricating audio and video on and off the Wethersfield Police Department through time, on and off New Britain Superior Court through time, on and off campuses. They have the roles of the police and the nurses and stuff like that. They're going to put database things. They have that involved with tactics and methods that have bonded uses of them and uses of the sense and sensibilities of black family members. They have involved with sequence shifts and with crimes of violence. And then the sequence shifts and relevant to that, because these are interbranch families that then pretend other when they're actually everyone's speaking through other people, but they're hiding the names of them. Then in other words, these are also people on off the state judicial branch offices in Connecticut, and with the Fianza family also, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated with others on 2 Route Highway involved with the black family, involved with the families, involved on and off Wethersfield campuses through time, with where and how. Also, where 2 Route Highway runs into Hang Dog Lane, though, the nature of that name. because there are people on Hangdog Lane also through time involved with identity thefts and fraud sequence shifts. Also narratives where they have officers trained to approach people like they know them, and their family members do that. And that is involved with sequence shifts, where and how in cases they have been fabricating audio and video, and they have been perjuring themselves, and they have been pretending others have perjured themselves. And, that's been influencing their cases because they have been kept needing to hide life aggressions individually grouped and together. Dozens of people from the Britain Superior Court alone and Hartford courts leading up to the World Trade Center, they were involved with locations they were using sickly, worse than war crimes, as victims, but as victim predators. They already had, in other words, so we don't have any position manned. That's not having been used remotely. So we have to have mandated law followed. And they have to stay breaching screens and tools preventing mandated law from being followed, which is recorded simultaneously when people make opinions about what Jim Crow laws were about. Even though as victims, blaming it on racism is collusion with that which leaves out the predicate acts delivery system method that has the slavery of everyone on this. This is the identity thefts, frauds against everyone, forced, naive quality of fact treatment nature, naive quality of positive and negative treatments, fake. Team must break. You guys missed all that's tied to the news, fabricated audio and video. They pretend things are just open and overt. Meanwhile, they have the right to lie. They have the right to cover lipoaggressions. For all that's been involved with the sciences, that is criminally foreign influence, only capable of being valuing vertical and horizontal database solution stacking. That is taking place also through methods that has private school kids involved with kids that aren't even in the same classes. That are involved with, attaching kids to fake locations. And with sick identities law, bunch of police at the same time. And then they pretend innocent people are criminals. They pretend they spread fake Facebook pages, fake YouTube pages. Pretending to be me, pretending to be others. These are the people that are also involved with recorded proofs of remote uses of presidents and chiefs and other nations' leaders, even dictators, by their locations, areas, and states, criminally foreign influence, force rolls with it. As the people also recorded as evidences on off Fox Connecticut News and on off WFSB, also pretending passions and emotions with people on the child sex offender registry, further involved with predicate acts on off schools with them, on off programs with the kids with them, and with programs that train the policing in the interbranch. They're sick. Now this is what is recorded. They make allegations against people. Now they need to pick one name in sequence because they've been forging names and switching names. So YouTube, please get me someone to pick one name in sequence and tell me who denies this. And have them pick one name in sequence for each branch of government. They each one are recorded. Now we're going to examine how overt criminal enterprises and how private ones are also involved with the people they have, pretend that their roles with that, also literally with those roles with that. Literally. With their roles with fabricating audio and video. With their roles with the people kept needing to hide life aggressions on off cases and on off campuses. With all locations further and further involved with them. Locations they exploited, like with shared like little strip malls between cities, and the policings of that, and their roles with a whole bunch of other nations, and how that has people coming back and forth and things like that has to do with it. Whether they realize it or not, where and how the investigators and the investigations of that are involved with identity thefts and frauds, and involved with the problems with the locations, and the names forging and switching, and the identity thefts and frauds with private places, and with campuses relevant to them interbranch. So we need a place to counter and way to counter. There are also private lawyers like Trantolo and Trantolo, with uses of the word family, word/value family, where he's involved with people on the child offender registry that are recorded involved with force-sustained abuses of kids, per how the interbranch through time were involved with predicate acts with kids' databases, and with foreign on campuses too, where they're switching names, forging names, putting fake mental diagnoses about people in campus into databases. Now these are military families and stuff like that, exploiting how they have medicines and medical racketeering involved with various natures of courts, fabricating audio and video, forging names, switching names, exploiting anomaly with the databases, also exploiting anomaly with the training of people who answer phones, where they have networks that were legitimately told they could lie, that have been illegitimately doing it, and with the investigators of that. So respond for WFSB, so we could get a response, because they also have roles with the men and women further intercities, on and off WFSBs, further roles with the people on and off the campuses and the policing of the campuses too. So they could pretend passionate Muslim. Oh, I couldn't fathom. Deal with the actual facts and get them who disbelieves interbranch. Pick one name and sequence and respond for the fabricated audio and video and their sequence shifts that the various branches are involved with locations also. How they've been involved with sequence shifts in their locations where they've been fabricating audio and video. Not just against me. They are victim predators incapable interbranch of defending themselves and of affording American history told properly. So we're going to do it. But we need other nations capable of having that done too. But they're already self-valuing roles with natures of industries, dealing with logic, dealing with health and locations and security that are in the furtherance against that. Through what, as fact treatment nature, we need and we need to care about. But exceptions in relationship to that were exploited. It was set up to be increasingly self-valued being and having been exploited. So we have no counters to things like war that are not in collusion with what led up to them. As victims, but as victim predators every time they think. So we have to have this admitted. We have to have means to it by having our nations in collusion and counter collusion against ourselves. By uniting ourselves, by taking the most forsaken areas, locations, areas and getting everyone on the same page, we make it a gaming system. We understand that and how a breaching method employed identity the ground locations that are only capable of causing negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. All exceptions and exception nature are in demonstration of that. For example, the suburbs are designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, let alone. People want to deny that. This is before cars. The houses from here to Russia have written all over them breaching method, criminal foreign influence, zoning laws, uses against that as fact treatment nature rolls with it. They have roles with psychology, with all kinds of medicines crimes and narratives with the law, and then they have to hide their life progressions with that. Then they have to hide what they've been doing in cases, so they have to have, which are already facilitated for them, the people who run the prisons here and there, in collusion too. Whole bunch of nations. So they can't defend themselves or allow what is actually recorded to be discerned, because it shows how they've been forcing discorrelation, pretended for only legitimate reasons. But their reasons are with this, which uses our elections and our mayors and other natures of politicians remotely. It's clear as day, sickly, overtly, and simultaneously sickly, insidiously. But we have to address that simultaneously, because where and how there are evidences and where and how names are brought into it, there are inseparable the roles of that are foreign influence, roles of collusion with that, but that also includes the interbranch. That also includes recorded, original, and still uses of them, covering up, breaching, screening. Everything. Boxing. So, all we have to do is admit we want to counter what came from semi-ancient times. That did not come from the ancients, because the ancients weren't with the sciences criminally foreign influenced. There are proofs that understanding of criminal foreign influences and of criminal insidious nature was more sophisticated in ancient times than it was in semi-ancient times, and than it is today, which is relevant, for example, to the discorrelation, all the points of discorrelation, identities of discorrelation, identities of value progression caused by and as such discorrelations, self-value in relationship to the answers to the questions that Americans and not other people of the other locations of the world, of the Earth's world, need to admit, address, and have addressed. I tell it best. Vaccines. The sciences share an identity. Now, they couldn't afford, since semi-ancient times today, they can't afford to have the science of the ancients discerned. Because it is about correlation. It reveals quality of fact-achieving nature. That reveals not only discorrelation roles that our bridge sciences have through every opinion they make. It's been affecting their style of, what words they, how they treat every topic. So you have to focus on where and how mandated law was prevented by the breaching method that also engineered everyone to roles, where no one would talk about the breaching method, but everyone's talk anyway. This is exploiting how our nature actually works. The identity of volume / S we are. I tell it best, it has its own. Vaccines, come home.